Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the fireside of the week of ending in the 10th of May, 2025. This is the week. This is another one of the relatively uneventful weeks. This will probably be fairly quick. There, as far as weeks in the self-proclaimed Trump administration go, this is something that is relatively uneventful. I hope that, by the way, that this new setup that I have is the new angle that I have set up is a little bit more professional and less distracting to y'all. But anyway, so it's certainly less distracting to me. So at the beginning of the week, and I put this in a post in case you saw that post, but I will say it again right after my fireside. The North Carolina election was called finally after a case in federal court, which has been obeyed because the governor of that state is a Democrat. I forgot his name, but he is a Democratic governor of North Carolina, and he will actually listen to the rulings of the court. Which, saying that, is absolutely insane, by the way. And I'm not old, but this is bizarre for me. This is something that I haven't seen in my life. I've lived in a country that has had a lot of corruption. A version of the United States that's had a lot of corruption, but never anything like this. But, it's absolutely bizarre. Can we take a few seconds to just remember how bizarre it is that that following the rulings of a court is a partisan issue? But that's the situation that we're in, and there's a bunch of other bizarre things about the time that we live in, and we do have to sometimes remember that this is not how it's supposed to be, and we're going to have to clean this all up very, very quickly. But anyway, because the governor of that state, and I have to admit, there have been red states that have surprised me. If you remember the Idaho town hall and the woman that was removed from that town hall illegally by private security, that prosecution did actually take place. They were the private security forces were prosecuted. So it's not completely a partisan issue, but I don't put anything past most elected Republicans at this point. Once again, just like the state Supreme Court race that took place, and in that case there wasn't really a long protracted battle at all, mainly because it was such a landslide. This was an election that actually originated in 2024. But the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, these are both court races. Interesting. The Wisconsin Supreme Court race was pretty much one and done, and the person immediately conceded the election, which is something that Trump still has not done with 2020. But this person also conceded. The judge that lost the election to the incumbent, Allison Riggs is her name, that one of the two incumbent Democratic, they're actually partisan. They're affiliated with their own parties. These are partisan races. The two Democratic justices on the Wisconsin Supreme Court are one of them was up for re-election, and their challenger spent several months. It's available in the Post, by the way. They spent several months, almost like 6, trying to throw out enough ballots targeted specifically to areas that are more blue, to throw enough ballots to swing the race in the other direction, because it was only like 600 and something votes in a state of 11 million that decided the margin. So, but they failed in federal court. They succeeded in state court, but they failed in federal court, and that is the law of the land. That is what the governor in that state has to, who, thank God, is not Mark Robinson, by the way, thank God. A lot of people did some great work to ensure that that didn't happen, especially investigative reporters. The governor is obeying the court order. Again, that could very well not have happened. Thank you, all of you North Carolina canvassers and reporters that discovered the dirt on him. But after he lost in court, he actually conceded the race, which is bizarre that we're seeing concessions twice at this point, 2 separate concessions of races by fairly anti-democratic Trump loyalist people who lost elections. And this is something that we should definitely take heart in, that these people, other than Trump himself, who is a whiny crybaby and has a complete aversion to losing in any way, the rest of these people, they're not every single one of these people is as stalwartly determined to break democracy and to break our trust in it as these people that as people like Trump and Bondi and the people in his immediate circle. Not every MAGA. There are MAGAs that are willing to lose. And if those are the only people that are left, and there are Republicans that are willing to lose, if those are the only people that are left by the time that we have our next election, we'll be able to get our person in. But I would still prefer that it be a landslide. But we'll be able to be more certain and confident in our votes if people that have this norm of conceding elections are the ones that are in charge, which can very well happen, by the way. It's called impeachment. This current crop of people can very much get kicked out, and Congress can choose anybody for their speaker who is directly in the line of presidential succession. The House specifically. So, anyway, on to the next bit of news. So, we have a new pope. Underwhelming in a lot of ways. Pope Francis was underwhelming in some different ways. I love him, and he did some great work. He was the first Catholic to take a real stance on global warming, which is what my last video was about. The one that I made other than the fireside. The last principles video that I made was about global warming. He took a stand on that, and he was the first pope to do that. And there's good things that he did, but he was underwhelming in a lot of ways too. He did play fast and loose with doctrine in a lot of areas, and that pissed people off, as it should, and it made them trust him less on the areas where what he said was right. And there were several other problems. He really did not take the grievances, with the exception of abortion. He didn't take the grievances of conservatives seriously, and that is not something that works. You have to take their grievances seriously, or they will they will find a way to have them taken seriously. And it's going to be ugly. So, just that aside, he was a liberal. He was a liberal pontiff. He believed in a liberal version of Catholicism. What we need is something that's more complicated than that. And this one is a conservative. And he takes strong stands on a lot of the recent distraction culture war issues. Issues that we really should not, neither the left nor the right, have any business focusing on. And I don't believe in the left and the right at all, frankly, as in their current forms. I think that, and I would consider myself more of a leftist, but in the sense that a lot of Trump voters, frankly, voted for him for leftist reasons. But I'm a leftist in the sense that I want the economy to be fair, that I want people to get paid for their work and paid reasonably. I want them to be free to make their own decisions, and not have all of this influence from the ultra wealthy. I want an economy that is fair. I want trusts to be broken up. I want I could name a million things that I want, and they're leftist things. The social issues are really a problem with the left. And there's actually, I might make a principles video about it later. I will put in the description a link. I'm just adding that, by the way, to my notes for what the description will be. I will put a link in the description because, and this link will be a link to a video about some essential program that was related to civil rights that Donald Trump butchered. But later on in that video, if y'all watch it, later on in that video, it is a major thing that I have a disagreement about with the person that made that video, Politics Girl, who is somebody that is on the money about a lot of things right now with this current self-proclaimed presidency that's going on. But she made a lot of comparisons and a lot of statements about how the rights of women were being rolled back, which is a serious problem with this, again, the self-proclaimed presidency that's going on with Trump. But one thing that I would say in response to that is that you can't be cruel about it. If you want the advances in women's rights to last, you have to do it in a way that's compassionate and fair to the children. And if you don't do that, if you do your advances in women's rights at the same time as other things happen, like a lot of potentially unnecessary divorces, or people lose their parents because of, and this has happened thousands and millions of times in the United States, and we complain about it when it's immigration related, but millions of children lost their parents because of addictions and because of promiscuity and stuff like that. And those things can't go together. And they have. And J.D. Unwin has wrote about this, actually, very often sadly, when women have gained rights, it has happened at the same time as a large increase in a whole bunch of vices that have caused a lot of suffering. And when that happens, when it is done in that way, it's very rare that those rights hold up for very long, because nobody likes that the suffering. Nobody likes little kids losing their parents or having to suffer through divorces for reasons that don't really make sense. Nobody likes all of this. Nobody likes drug addiction. Nobody likes any of this suffering. And when that is associated with women's rights, then eventually a lot of people, and I'm not one of them, I'm somebody that heard a lot of man-hating stuff as a child, and my response to it was to double down on egalitarianism. There are several women right now, and I don't support a lot of politicians, period. And one of the politicians that I support the most, for all her foibles and flaws, and she's human, and this is a hard moment, but I do have a lot of support for Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez. And the only statement I've made so far about her is a post that she made about why she voted for the SAVE Act, which was a horrible decision. And she has admitted that it was a bad decision. I don't know why she voted for it at all, frankly. But she did. And it was cowardly of her to do that. She was pandering to a lot of people that were listening to Fox News and stuff like that. But at least she's trying. And she's one of the people that I agree with the most. I don't think that there's any man, at least in the whole House of Representatives, that I agree with as much as I agree with her. Not that I know of. And she's a woman. I did not like the two women that ran for president in my lifetime, particularly, especially the first one, who was the wife of one of the most corrupt politicians that we've had certainly in the past 100 years at least. But that was because of the merits of what they offered. It wasn't because and with Harris, she was more of just an underwhelming normal Democrat. And at least she wasn't corrupt and she believed in something. But I still had serious disagreements with her for the reasons that I've just mentioned over the past 5 or 6 minute rant. But it's not about misogyny, though. And I've never been a misogynist. But a lot of people, when the suffering of anomie, of normlessness, and people failing to uphold their obligations to the next generation, to their own children and their own nieces and nephews, when that is associated with improvements in women's rights, a lot of people believe that. A lot of people follow that, and so we have to not let that happen. You have to do it right. If you want these rights to be upheld, if you want people to love them, you have to make a society that you have to create them in a context where they're lovable, in a society that's lovable. And if you don't do that, then a lot of people are going to give up on them. And so anyway, that's my rant about this, about the left and the right, I really think that they're inadequate. You could have actually heard something similar to that in my paper, which I have a playlist of. It's almost finished. But I got, in chapter 5, I've written a lot about the left and the right and why I don't even agree with the concept. I don't think that the left and the right as they currently exist are the best that we can have. So anyway, so this new pope is a conservative. He is he's somebody that cares a lot about culture war issues, like people that are transgender, that believe, who have a First Amendment right, by the way, to say what they say and believe what they believe. Don't you dare take that away from them, anybody in this regime. But he disagrees with them, and he makes that a big part of his public statements. He has made that a big part of his public statements in the past, which I think that the whole issue is something that is really a waste of time on both sides. I think that we should protect their First Amendment rights, certainly, and those are under attack right now. But I think that the issue is a waste of time. He does not talk about the old culture war issues, which are the ones that really matter, like divorce and the rise in promiscuity, which a lot of people don't talk about that, because talking about that requires taking responsibility. It's things that a lot of people have done. You can't just scapegoat. You have to say, oh yeah, you're not perfect either, voters. And that's something that politicians are afraid to do. And people in general are afraid to do that. Well, it's the only way we're going to make it. And that includes myself, by the way. I'm not perfect by any means. But we just have to do what we can to stop this now. But he doesn't talk hardly about those at all. Nobody on the right does. They all moved on to the new dumb stuff and the quagmires that waste our time. And it's such a shame. And it's a shame about the whole conservative movement. But at least he's not. But like this whole thing, I'm reading the news to you, and that's why I posted something in the description to skip to this part of the video, because I don't. What matters now for this, just for the day by day, play by play of what's going on with the self-proclaimed Trump presidency, is that he's not somebody that is supported by or supports MAGA. He believes in the separation of church and state and in religious freedom, which is an absolute necessity in a democratic society. You can't have a church that is recognized as by the state and have a democracy. And frankly, if we want public policy to be implemented, we should have to make our case in a neutral way. We don't get to just have what we want imposed without doing our homework. If we do our homework, I think that the people should listen to us, but that's a separate conversation that I just had with you over the past 10 minutes or so. So he's basically TLDR on this new pope is that he is a he's basically the papal equivalent, the Catholic equivalent, and he is American, by the way, which was that is a statement in itself. I'll get to that soon. He is basically the papal equivalent, the Catholic equivalent of a never Trump Republican. That's basically what he is. And I appreciate never Trump Republicans. And I would consider myself, and people that agree with me, which are Christian Democrats, that's what they're known around the world, Christian democracy. People that, or just socially conservative democracy, socially conservative leftism. There's a million names for it. But people that agree with me are, I would say that I could call myself certainly a never Trump MAGA. I agree with a lot of Trump's policy positions, but the authoritarian, at least in theory, but the authoritarianism, as well as the incompetence, but mainly the authoritarianism, is just jarring and terrifying, and I could never vote for him. And I haven't. I didn't campaign for him in either of the last 2 elections, and I didn't vote for him in my first election that I could vote in. But I appreciate never Trump Republicans. I know what it's like, but it's not quite what we need. It doesn't meet the moment. We need visionaries that are willing to break with the orthodoxy of the left and the right in order to deliver what the people need, which is a return to social norms, a return to this word's been butchered by the right, but family values, a return to people respecting the dignity of people at all ages, not just people that are young, fit adults that want to do things like drugs and sex, casual sex, that put younger people in danger. And older people are understandably protective, and they don't like seeing that. We need to respect the dignity of people of all ages. And that's something that the left in its current form does a pitiful job of. So, anyway, I'm going to try to move on quickly to the rest of the news. So, there was this video that Steve Shives made, and I haven't recommended his channel yet. For the most part, I don't, because he's very into FAFO and things like that. But he doesn't understand what regret looks like. He just expects that people, when you ask people on a survey less than 6 months after the election, maybe it's slightly more, whether they regret their vote, they're not going to tell somebody that looks like they're from the other party and admit that they are somebody that regrets their vote. I'm sure a lot of them do, but they're not going to prostrate themselves before a party of people that they dislike for a million reasons that I've talked about in my paper and in several videos. They're not going to just prostrate themselves before people that they disagree with and have grievances against. So that, but he doesn't understand that, and I listen to that polling in his video. It's valuable polling, but it's something that we do not have. We do not have the luxury of listening to the defeatism of people like this. And frankly, if we want people to answer these polls, what we need to do is speak to them on their level and admit that we have not treated them particularly well in all the ways that I've talked about. And if we can give them another option, I think a lot more of them will be comfortable saying in public that they regret voting for Trump and that it is that they're sorry about it. So the final item of news that I have is this raid that takes place that took place in Metro West Boston. I live in Metro West Boston. This one was in Worcester. There was another one in Framingham that wasn't really reported on. I live in Metro West of Boston, Mass, the Metro West area, and it's very. This is close to home. I have been in the neighborhood actually on one of the times that I was practice driving with a family member. I have actually we take a lot of highways and go out of the way when we practice, and I found myself on one of the streets that this raid happened at while I was practice driving. This is something sorry about that notification. This is something that hits very close to home for me. No, it's coming. Unless this is stopped, this is coming for our neighborhoods. But more importantly, it's coming for our visionaries. It's coming for our leaders. It's coming for the people that could create a future when this is done. And so I have several final links in the description that I'm going to put in there and for y'all. And they are concerning this particular raid as well as another one on the stakes that are involved. I've described those stakes before, and I described them in my last video about global warming. But I feel like somebody else, I think it was Molly Jong Fest, I'm not sure, had a good perspective on it as well, and I want to show that to you. But we have to stop this before it comes into our neighborhoods, before it comes for the people that we're going to need when this is all over. And we're going to need the blessing of God, frankly. Because if this was a fair fight, we don't have Tad Stormer. I'm not going to link to his channel because I don't think that it's productive. There are people that say the same things in a much more productive way. But Tad Stormer did make one good point, which is there isn't a lot of courage in this country right now, relatively speaking. That's why it took so long for us to get organized. Every day so far, unless something really terrible is happening, unless some major breach of previous norms happens on that specific day, every passing day, it is mattering less and less that we are weak, because we're getting more and more bold and we believe less and less that these things are actually going to happen. We believe it less in our nervous systems, in our gut. But if this was a fair fight, we would lose it. And we're going to need blessing. We're going to need providence to get through this. We're not going to be able to do it on our own merits, because our own merits are what got us here. Our own merits are what made millions of people want to make this horrible decision in the first place. We need to give them another alternative, and we need to be able to be there to give them that alternative. We can't let them take away their own future leaders. And none of these people, if they're under like 65, are acting within their self-interest. None of them. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm going to probably be releasing something tomorrow in terms of principles video. I'm still not ready with my chapter 6 of my paper. That's going to take a while. I was mostly ready with the rest of it before I even started filming. But anyway, God bless y'all. This is going to be something that is very valuable, and we just have to stop this. I don't know what I just said. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you next video. Bye.